I'm editing this and realizing the audio is messed up. It's spiking too much, and like where I have these new lights keep casting shadows, so please forgive me. I have another video that will be similar to this because I filmed them at the same time, but I will fix that. Hi guys, if you're new here, my name is Sam and I make videos about makeup, chronic illness, and whatever I want. And it's been a hot minute since I made a chronic illness video, so that's what I'm going to do. I had a lovely viewer ask for some specific videos, and I'm always looking for video ideas, so I was very grateful for that. And today I'm going to do one of those requests. Today's video is going to be about pacing. So let's start with, how do you do it? If you aren't familiar with pacing, it is basically just giving yourself some limits and sticking to it. It's common phrasing for runners or anything. You just pace yourself to get it done. Well, for those of us with a chronic illness, it is basically pacing our activities so we don't crash or get PEM. I am forgetting what PEM means, so I will put it somewhere up here. Post something. Illness brain. Let's start with, how do you figure out how to pace? Well, first and foremost, it's basically trial and error, which doesn't exactly sound fun, but there's an easier way to do it than how you have probably been doing it. Let's start with some things that are just off limits no matter how you feel. Running, intense exercising, like ripping up your whole yard, those types of things, you'll just never be able to do again. And as fun as they are, your health is more important. So like myself, I was a runner when I got sick. I did kickboxing, I did all sorts of things, and so it was very difficult for me to I have makeup on my shirt. It was very difficult for me to stop those things because they were such a large part of my life, but it just had to be done. I did try a few times to integrate running back into my lifestyle, and that is how I went from a seemingly mild case of ME/CFS to a moderate with weeks of severe case. So we don't want that. Rather than crashing 100 times, how I suggest gauging your limitations will be starting with small tasks and working your way up. A great example is, don't clean your whole house because you're going to crash, and that's not going to help you figure out what your limit is. So start with one easy, low energy task. I don't know, folding laundry, washing the dishes, etc. And then give yourself the rest of that day and the following day to see if you notice any increase in symptoms or symptoms of PEM, and go from there. So if you do crash from that was too much. So if you washed the dishes and crashed, maybe you need to sit while you're washing the dishes. If you crash with folding laundry, maybe you need to fold less at one time. Things like that. If you do okay and you don't have any of those symptoms afterwards, I would suggest adding, so you're going to give yourself the rest of that day and the whole next day. So more or less 48 hours later, try doing that and adding one small task. So try washing the dishes and folding laundry, and then give yourself the rest of that day and a whole next day, so on and so forth. And really keep track of when you start to feel the symptoms, because you want to nip it pretty fast. Your PEM will be significantly less when you catch it after a small task than if you try to go train for a half marathon. You're going to crash hard for weeks. This will only keep you down for a couple of days if you do have a reaction. It's kind of, I guess frustrating is the right word, because you want to do more, and this is slow. You're just doing one thing at a time. But really it's about self-preservation. You don't want to crash too much too often, or you'll end up worsening your illness permanently. Well, I've been doing this for multiple years now. You would assume I'm a pro, but I'm not. I do this all the time. Last weekend, actually, I decided to do more than I knew was in my limit, but I only had 2 tasks left, and I spent the whole week recovering from those extra 2 tasks. So it's not foolproof. You're still going to push yourself a little harder sometimes. Just just because you want to, but if you can make it so 98% of the time you are not, it will make your life so much easier. And I can't sit here and say that I'm an angel about it because I'm not. Now let's talk about exercise. I don't think everyone's a runner, but I mentioned running, kickboxing. You probably have your own type of exercise. I need you to forget about exercise as you have known it, because that life is gone. It's never coming back, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news. And, even for my own sake, it isn't news that I want to hear, but it's news that you need to hear, because it's just not happening. While I have found ways to take part in cleaning, like sitting, lots of breaks, exercise has been a whole nother beast to tackle, because as I mentioned, I was very active, and exercise is pretty much just approached like you go to the gym, you do the elliptical, you lift weights, you blah, blah, blah. That will basically ruin our lives. Maybe you have heard of something called graded exercise therapy, or GET. It's often poorly suggested to people with ME/CFS. It is detrimental to your health. I'm not quite sure why it's recommended. I don't know if it's malice or just people don't care to learn. People, as in medical professionals, just don't care to learn about the disease, but you don't want to do it. Graded exercise therapy, if you're not familiar, is basically like any other training regimen. You start slow and you just add things. There is this misconception that doing that will just miraculously make us not sick anymore, because people tend to think we're just fatigued. And unfortunately, with a name like chronic fatigue syndrome, it does imply that, but that is literally not the situation. Fatigue is not at all how I would describe the exhaustion you feel, but then there are hundreds of other symptoms that go along with this illness. But that's a whole nother thing. I have a whole video about that. There's a misconception that maybe we're just kind of lazy. Also not true. I would say most of us like to be active. Like me, for example, when I got sick, I was training for track. I loved to be active. I've said that 100,000 times, and it's probably getting annoying. But I really want to drive home that it's kind of like this disease has ruined my life and taken away one of my favorite hobbies. So I really just want to make that clear. Maybe for people who don't have this illness, trying to understand it, well, I know those of you who do completely understand what I'm saying. Now, all of this isn't to say there is zero exercise that we can do, but it's pretty limited, and, you really have to be careful about potentially overdoing it. That is not what you want to do. Each of us are going to have different limits and different exercise windows, etc. Like what I can do it might be too much or too little for what you can do. So it's also the trial and error for pacing. For me personally, I find yoga and very mild, like Pilates, things they would teach you in physical therapy, to be really helpful, because I can do a lot of yoga in the physical therapy / Pilates things in bed while I'm lying down. They don't exert too much energy, and the stretching of my muscles prevents the lactic acid buildup that makes my pain worse and makes me a lot more stiff. Thankfully, neither of those give me PEM, but there definitely are days that I have to do less and maybe only stretch my neck compared to being able to stretch my back and my legs, etc. It is nowhere near the level of exercise I was before getting sick. And since I got long illness, I have had to limit it even more than before, which has been pretty hard, but I'm managing. So my suggestion there is start with slow stretching, and don't forget that things like cleaning or going to the grocery store and walking for us do count as exercise. Well, let me rephrase. They count as exercise for everyone, but for us, with the level of energy, we have to count it as almost like how someone going to the gym would count their treadmill time. We have to count like grocery shopping as our treadmill time. So it's a little bit different. And I would like to remind you that exercise is exercise. Moving your body in any way Even if you're laying down and you're just, stretching your arms, like, it counts. You're taking care of yourself. And I really want you to recognize that that's okay and it is enough, and don't feel bad that you can't do what other people are doing. Next, let's talk about heart rate. I'm not completely sure what research exists on this, but I know I've seen a few small studies regarding your level of heart rate and how much energy you're burning. So for those of us with chronic illnesses, keeping our heart rate lower is kind of what extends our energy. So having an extended heart rate for longer periods of time for us can definitely cause PEM, and I think it's even worse if you have POTS like I do. So take that into consideration. I started with just a Fitbit and have upgraded to a smartwatch for other features, but really monitoring where my heart rate is and where I feel okay and can avoid PEM has been really, really helpful for me. Everyone's going to have a different heart rate. Like I said, I have POTS, so my resting heart rate is a little bit higher, and my heart rate when I sit or stand just skyrockets. So I need to be mindful of that. If I'm lying down, my heart rate can be somewhere around 80. If I sit up, it shoots up to between 90 and 100. And if I stand up, it can sometimes go over 115 to 120. Now, if I become active, sometimes it will be over 130, and that's when I find my PEM is really bad and it is aggravated and shows up. I'm stumbling over my words. So if I'm going to be active, go for a walk, carry in groceries, vacuum, I have to make sure that my heart rate is not going over 120 within 1 or 2. Like if it's 121, I'll be okay, but I cannot let it get much higher than that, or I notice I crash harder and longer than usual. If I notice my heart rate is spiking, I need to stop, I need to sit. Sometimes I even need to lie down. So be mindful that you will have to do something to slow it down. Just standing there might not be enough. You might need to sit or lie to get your heart rate to come back down. And that is just part of our normal life. It might feel weird at first, but I promise it is normal for those of us in that situation. Speaking of breaks, take them frequently. They are mandatory. They're not a nice little rest. They are absolutely necessary for people in our position. Yes, it will make your tasks take 10 times longer, and that is frustrating, but I promise it will be worth it when you can function the next day, even a little bit. And one of the questions I get asked a lot is like, how do you know when you need to rest? I am kind of new to listening to my body. I have my old cues, so I'm unfamiliar. So how I pay attention is my posture. If I feel myself doing this, which you'll probably notice sometimes in my videos, I need to like pull my shoulders back. If this is difficult, this is one of the signs that I know I need to take a rest. If I'm standing and I'm hunching, so if I can't keep my posture correct, then I know my body is tired. Like right now, my body is very tired, but I want to get this video done, so here we are. The next thing is watching your neck, if you're looking down a lot, because your posture should be up like this. If your head feels like it weighs 100 pounds, you might need to lie down. If I'm struggling to engage my core, and again, kind of slumping, but it's not just shoulders or neck, if I can just not really hold my core up, that's another sign. And you might find yourself with other signs, like you just feel tired. You might have a harder time paying attention. Those things for me come later. First it's the physical and then it comes cognitive. So you just need to figure out, like when you start to really be in tune with your body, what are you noticing? Are you tired? Are you having trouble concentrating? Are you having trouble keeping your eyes open? That's like a pretty extreme one. Are you struggling with your posture? Do you just feel heavy? Those are all signs you definitely need to take a break. Now let's talk about grief. You have probably been grieving the things you used to be able to do in the past. You are grieving the things you won't be able to do in the future, and you're grieving right now. The grief with chronic illness never stops, and I'm sure that's true for all grief, not just this. I think the difference here is you're reminded of it every moment of the day. With other forms of grief, I feel like sometimes you can go longer times without a trigger or a reminder, but for us, it's like every ache and pain, every time we yawn, all of it re-triggers that grief, and it's completely normal. I'm sure you feel helpless and useless and like a burden. I've spent so much of the last 17-ish years just feeling like I don't have a purpose. And I think a lot of that is due to the fact that society has placed our productivity and our worth as a combined effort, and I promise that that isn't true. I know it's easy for me to just say this, and I know you might know that, but it's hard to believe. But it's just a reminder that your worth is not determined by your productivity. You are important. You make people laugh. You share information. You exist in the world for more than just the work you can do. So don't think that because you don't have a job, or maybe you had to move to part-time, or maybe you struggle at your job, you're not any less of a person than anyone else. And my final little segment is the ups and downs of chronic illness. It's pretty much like a roller coaster. You're going to have days where you're up here and days where you're down here and days right in the middle. Some days you'll be able to do more than others, and it's not always solely based on PEM. It can be weather changes, it can be a new medication, it can be, like me, I struggle in the winter because my body has a hard time regulating temperature, so I have to spend more time trying to keep myself warm, and that just burns through my energy incredibly quickly. So you will have days that even if you didn't overdo it the day before, you're just going to have a flare and you can't do everything you want to do, and that is also normal. It might feel like your body is working against you, but think about it in this mindset. Your body is working so hard for you. It is using every ounce of energy to make sure that you're alive and you're as healthy as possible. It's burning through your energy. It's taking every moment of the day to work hard for you. So be a good coworker and rest, hydrate, eat. All of these things help your body continue to do its job. And with that, I think I've covered as much as I could think of. If you have any questions, specific questions, please put them in the comments. I would be more than happy to answer them. This was really all I could think of off the top of my head without more prompting. I hope this was helpful, whether you have a chronic illness or you're trying to help someone with a chronic illness, or maybe you just want to understand the community a little better. I'm sorry, I'm so sweaty. If you have any ideas for chronic illness videos, please let me know. Like I said, I'm always looking for new ideas. They really help me out because sometimes I don't know what's going to help other people. I'm trying to do things that I thought would help me in the past, right when I was getting sick, but sometimes my noggin just isn't working. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. I do make other content, as I mentioned in the beginning, but I try to make sure that I upload chronic illness videos fairly frequently. So if you're here for one thing and not the other, I'm not leaving you behind. And with that, I will see you guys next time.